Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. The cars are out in the circuit, and we're ready to go.
The field rolling now, still warming up, getting their cars in position, checking their gauges. The front row, the front of the field, all properly aligned, but Scott Brayton already with a problem in the Amway machine. As the green flag comes out, the race has begun, and Mario Andretti darts in behind Emerson Fittipaldi as his son Michael picks up the lead. Rick Mears drops into fourth place. Then Ari Leyendijk, and Bobby Rahal is all over the back of Leyendijk's car trying to find racing room, followed by Teo Fabi and Al Unser Jr. They string through that very difficult third turn and now make the turn out along the lakeside onto the main runway here at the Burke Lakefront Airport.
Yes, Michael Andretti is charged into the lead. He set a new track record here.
On board now with Al Unser Jr. as he works his way around this course. And you can get an idea here of how very, very rough it is. It's incredibly rough, especially on the transition roads. Now, you're on the runway at this point. There, as he comes over some of the asphalt, look at the hands. The wheel just almost literally yanked out of his hand.
It's extremely rough. You can see how smooth it gets on these runways, but when you make these transitions we're talking about, it just really beats you up.
So on board with Al Unser Jr., we look back to the front of the field. The number 6 car, that's the Kmart machine of Michael Andretti. Out in front, Emerson Fittipaldi is second. They come in making that little switchback just before the start-finish line, and Michael Andretti leads across the line. Lap number 1 is complete, 80 laps of scheduled distance. That's just a tick under 200 miles here. Fittipaldi playing it very much like last week when in the early laps he watched as Emerson Fittipaldi would just keep an eye on what Teo Fabi was doing. He might be doing the same thing here today.
He very well could, Paul. And, you know, his car looks like it's working extremely well. It's taking the bumps well, as it did in Detroit. The car is very smooth. It doesn't seem to jump around as much as some of the other cars.
Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, it darts just a bit as the Marlboro car runs in second place right now. Fittipaldi has learned to play it very carefully. The question, of course, last week was one of fuel. That was critical to the survival. Well, here, it seems that fuel is not the problem. The course itself is.
It takes its toll on cars because it is so very, very rough.
They've spread out at the front of the field. Fittipaldi is chasing Michael Andretti. Michael in that Lola powered by a Chevrolet engine. Of course, Chevrolet engines right in the top positions of this race. On board again with Al Unser Jr. now, running back in 7th place at the moment. You can see as he closes in on Rick Mears sitting just ahead. Bobby Rahal in the rear wing. The yellow ring, that's Bobby Rahal, of course, and Ari Leyendijk in that black car just a bit in front. Nice little fight developing here.
Yes, these guys have always gone at it. They're very equally matched, and Ari Leyendijk has been showing extremely well the last few races, running up front, finishing, and of course Rahal finished second last weekend, so he has the capabilities, and Little Al sitting back there getting a good look at it, watching them. There you see he goes by Rahal.
Little Al just comes right past Bobby Rahal, picks up the position now as Little Al moves into 6th place. The fight continues. At the front of the field, it is still Michael Andretti.
Michael Andretti is pulling out to a good lead. Here we're getting a chance to watch Al Unser Jr. as his car goes around turn 8, heading for turn 9, and you can see the cars bouncing. They're settling in, I guess. The shocks are warming up. Things are coming right. So Rahal is giving chase, and Al has sets his sights on Ari Leyendijk.
In those top positions, it's Chevrolet down to the 4th place, and then Ari Leyendijk represents the first Cosworth entry. And again, look on board with Little Al.
Isn't that amazing? Just incredible shots to see how rough these transitions really are. That was turn 1 and 2, heading down to 3. Hard braking. He really runs in on Leyendijk here, so he must be getting in.
Look how close he cuts to the apex of that corner. Now here they open it up. Go as fast as they can, and he looks like he's going to make a move inside. The next corner is to the right, so he's properly positioned as Al Unser Jr. comes past Leyendijk.
Well, there's that Chevrolet power coming through again, and he drives right by Leyendijk, takes the spot, and continues on.
The question, of course, John, is, and you get a real good idea of it from this shot looking back from Little Al's car, is that there are no real reference points on this course. So when Little Al sets up on a straightaway like that, he's going to pass somebody, he's got to be moving back and forth between the car he's going to pass and still trying to find his reference points, but you can see there aren't any.
Well, you really have to. You look at this, you can see some of the dark marks in the turns, and that's really what you key on. You have to look for that groove, we call it, the black spots where the cars run the most, and the oil and the tire rubber is put down so it leaves marks. You'll see them there as he goes through the turn, disappear behind the car. He's really running off from Roy Lionel.
So Al Unser Jr., the Valvoline machine, moving his way up to the field. Got not the qualifying run that he would have wanted, but he's beginning to make up for it now. And there's Scott Brayton, the Hamway machine. He saw his problems on the opening laps, now being pushed back toward his pit area, and hopefully he can get some service and get back into the fight. Now, there's a situation with this particular car. You know, the series have had 3 weekends in a row, from Detroit all the way out to Portland, all the way back to Cleveland. And the Amway team was bright enough to charter a special jet to try to get the team rested a little bit in between the different races so that they would be rested when they finally got here to Cleveland. Back with Michael Andretti, who is at the front of the field and still being chased by Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi is just about a half-second back as you take a look from the Goodyear blimp.
He looks like he's closed in just a little bit, so Emo must be getting things sorted out and making his normal move to the front. He's closed the gap a little bit, but then by the same token, Michael might have settled down and eased up a little bit to take it easy on his car.
Well, Michael Andretti has led 6 of 7 races this year. The only race that he didn't lead was last week at Portland.
There we see that transition coming around turn 3 onto the straightaway. That's a high-speed taxiway, and now they're back out onto the concrete. And it's relatively smooth on the concrete, even though it is grooved to drain water off the runway. Here, there, another transition. You can see the dark parts I was talking about, the groove through the turns. And that's the rough parts. When they have to go from one runway to the next, it is extremely rough.
When they turn across those grooves, what's that do to the tires?
Well, it really doesn't seem to have any effect on them because they've cleaned it off. In other words, the tires have put down a coat of rubber, or anyway, car number 50 there pulling off, smoking quite heavily.
That's Scott Atchison, who pulls off the course. Obviously something wrong in the engine department, so the former Super V driver with his problems here today. It is Michael Andretti that is still leading Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi really beginning to worry the younger Andretti.
Yes, he's closing in, and that's kind of the way Mo does it. He pulls up and has a chance to get his car sorted out. He runs second or third, and then bang, starts making that move, marching to the front.
JR, you're leading a race like this. A car comes up to challenge you. Do you deliberately kind of stay away from looking at the rearview mirrors and just drive ahead of you?
No, you have a glance. You pay attention to what you're doing and try to run as hard as you possibly can, but you're always aware of things, any movement in the mirrors. You don't really look at them. You just kind of keep them in your frame of vision, and when something moves in it, you take a check on it.
Well, a professional like Michael Andretti certainly knows that Emerson Fittipaldi is sitting right behind him. The report, by the way, on the Scott Atchison car is that the turbo let go, and that took him out of the race. So he will now occupy the last finishing position as the fight continues. The front of the field, 2 Chevrolet-powered machines. Michael Andretti trying to hold off a charging Fittipaldi.
There you can see them, Paul, come all the way across that big, wide straightaway, trying to get away from the rough part up at the far end, the east end of the track. It's extremely bumpy up there, and it will just make the car bottom out and quit braking. So they move over and try to find the smoothest spot through there.
You're watching the battle at the front. Mario Andretti is running third. Rick Mears is fourth. Let's go to his pit, Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul, as Roger Penske stands on the wall and anxiously watches Rick Mears. It's interesting here. We are now, of course, in the third of 5 straight road course events. Road courses are Fittipaldi's specialty. Mo leads the point standings by 16 over Rick Mears. Mears and his team figure if they could get 50 total points out of these 5 road course events, they're going to be in good shape going to his specialty, the ovals and the 500 milers coming up next month at Michigan and Pocono. So far, 15 points, starting at Detroit with 10, 5 last week at Portland. But remember, Rick Mears led 25 of those laps at Portland last week. Had they not run out of fuel, he'd had a much stronger finish. So they think they're right on their timetable. He's holding in 4th place, being pressured by little Al Unser at this time. Now let's go up the pits now and check in with Jack Arute.
Gary, already we've had one problem on the Amway car, that driven by Scott Brayton and Dick Simon. You're the car owner of the car. It's starving for fuel, you tell me.
Yes, Jack, we don't know what the problem is. We had it running. Cosworth helped us last night to get it all running real well. This morning everything was perfect, and for some reason or other it's not drawing fuel into the system at the moment. We're trying to find out why.
Now, there should be some new enthusiasm for your team with the announcement last week that Cosworth was going to lose its #1 team, so to speak, at the end of the year. That, of course, Bobby Rahal and Crayco, going on to Chevrolet power. Do you think that'll help you guys maybe at the end of this year and possibly into 1991 vis-a-vis Cosworth power plants?
no question, Jack, as you're well aware of, that the Cosworth team, of course, with Ray Hall and Ari, and now, you know, Cosworth has been here this weekend helping Scotty and Ari very, very much. I don't know anything other than to say that, in my opinion, that cannot mean nothing but a plus for us, because Cosworth is never going to sit still and let everybody else get ahead. You know, at one time they had almost every car in the field at Indianapolis, and they're working very hard right now. We're just very proud to be a part of all that.
Well, that's the story from here, and if you hear behind me, it looks as if maybe Scott Brayton's... Nope, it's still starving for that fuel, guys.
Well, there's a nice little fight developing, and we've been watching it for some time in the fight for fourth place, as Rick Mears just ahead is trying to hold off Al Unser Jr. Now, Mears led for 22 laps back in the first running of this race in 1982, but he has not led on this circuit since that time. He's currently running in fourth place, and little Al is really chasing him down.
Yes, he's making the move. Pulled up on him quite heavily there in turns 11 and 12, and he's closed in very close here. It remains to be seen how effective they are. They both got Chevrolets, so they should be able to stalemate down the long straightaway. So that'll bear watching.
Back at the front of the field, Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi. Mario Andretti, we've not seen much of him. The car, of course, with the exception of the number, is identical to Michael, sitting back in third place, not being challenged by Rick Mears. At the same time, he's not really moving forward to challenge Emerson Fittipaldi. Now, behind that fight for fourth is Ari Lyondike running in sixth place. Bobby Rahal is seventh. Teo Fabi is eighth. Scott Pruitt is back in ninth. 10th is Derek Daly. Raul Boisel has moved up to 11th place. 12th is Didier Tays. 13th is Kevin Kogan. Al Unser is now running in 14th. James Weaver 15th. And John Jones up in 16th position. And here's a problem on the side of the race course, as
car number 65, that's John Jones. Looks like he's pulled off for whatever reason.
Actually have two different reports coming in simultaneously. There's also a report that Barbosa has been having problems and that he's pulled off the course as well. So two different cars just in the last lap pulling off of the course. No contact, no obvious problem with the engines, but both Barbosa and Jones off the course and stopped as we're back on board now, as Al Unser Jr. is trying to chase down Rick Mears.
He is really moving in on him, and we'll get the right spot here. That'll look, there he goes into turn. He's getting a wider apex, a line there trying to get in. He's really working well.
Al Unser Jr. chasing Rick Mears down. The battle for fourth place at the front of the field. It's still Michael Andretti. There's the Enterprise as it floats lazily over this course here. And of course the cameras on board give you shots like this of the first and second place car. Michael Andretti and Emerson Fittipaldi.
That was that third turn we've talked about so much, and it is so rough, and it's one of the key places because they get out on this back straightaway near the lake, and it's long and fast, 180 miles an hour or so. In turn number 5, you can see the black spots. So that's the things you kind of look for when you approach them at the high speeds.
You know what's amazing about this place, as we've been here over the years, John, is the race is flagged, the celebrations take place, and it's generally not more than an hour or two afterwards, and the first planes are taxiing out to take off.
Yes, and it's amazing to watch them swing into action to make this a racetrack. You know, they have everything in place, all of the lifting equipment, the cranes. Bang, it changes from an airport into a racetrack.
All right, let's go down to the pits once again, this time to Jack Arute.
Paul, as we continue to watch that battle for fourth position between Rick Mears and Al Unser Jr., Al Unser Jr.'s team can't be blamed if they're a little bleary-eyed this morning. You know, they've had not such a great weekend here. They've worked their way from 17th fastest up to 7th fastest. Last night, they didn't leave the Burke Lakefront Airport until well past 11 p.m. They continue to work on the suspension properties of their race car, making major changes for today's race, and it seems to have worked out quite well for him so far.
Well, at the moment, he runs in 5th place and continues to try to chase down Rick Mears. By the way, the gearbox on the Jones car let go, and on Barbosa's machine, it was an engine problem. Both drivers out of the race. And once again, you ride with Al Unser Jr. as he continues to track Rick Mears. Mears running in 4th. You can see that bright yellow Pennzoil machine just ahead. Little Al has managed to stay right at the back end and continues to chase Mears. From time to time, he's moved up and actually taken a little charge on Mears.
Yes, he has, and it seems like he's able to get into the turns maybe a little harder.
We take a look at 1st through 5th. Of course, Michael Andretti, the pole sitter with a new track record here, is led right from the green flag. Al Unser Jr. there you see at the bottom of the top 5. 14 laps are already complete. Bobby Rahal was able to get around Arie Luyendyk just a few moments ago and pick up 6th place. Luyendyk followed by the Porsche of Teo Fabi, then Scott Pruitt, and Raoul Boisel has now moved up into 10th place. He started 12th, so he moved up just a bit. And Al Unser Jr. continues his pursuit as we take a look at the lead. Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi first and second, and there is Al Unser Jr. and with a clear field ahead, he just got around Rick Mears. So Al Unser Jr. now has picked up yet another position. He started in 7th. He is now running in 4th. Rick Mears has dropped back.
Yeah, that was a slick move down the backside. Little Al gathered him up, was able to drive by, and got the position to take him over going into turn 5, and is ahead of Rick Mears, running in 4th position at the time.
Average speed of the race at this point for Michael Andretti, just a tick over 131 miles an hour. So they're taking off and running pretty hot here. The race record's at 128, so we have a record pace at the moment. We mentioned Fabrizio Barbazza and his problems. Let's go down to the pits now. Gary Gerould has an update.
Well, fortunately for Fabrizio, he was able to get back in where the pit could try to service him. Unfortunately, they've been here a long time after stalling on course. They suspected ignition problems. They've changed the box. They're changing the plug. Of course, the first thing we were checking to make sure that it wasn't something in the drive shaft or the gearbox, because those are the types of problems that we'd expect. They did have a misfire. They're about ready to try to fire it up and get him back in the race, Paul.
All right, so they continue to work on that machine. Of course, you say, well, why do they keep working when the laps are just going further and further away? There's still a great deal to learn, and there's, of course, the possibility through attrition, which is expected in this race, that through attrition alone you can move up.
Yeah, very much so, Paul. And, you know, hearing those speeds of the leaders, Michael Andretti and Emerson Fittipaldi, that's awfully fast, and they are pushing to be able to do that. And Mario might be setting in the prime spot back there to be able to just collect up those spots if they have anything go wrong.
Well, Michael Andretti just whizzed one around at 132.5 miles an hour as they work their way past some slower cars. Let's go back just a little bit now to that action between Al Unser Jr. and Rick Mears. This is the battle for 4th place as it was just a few moments ago. And there is little Al as he just under braking was able to get down inside Rick Mears, brake a little bit later, get to the corner first. Boy, that is just about a perfect corner. And look at that right front bouncing along the ground.
Perfect. Yeah, he had it all wired. He was just in the right spot.
I'll tell you what, when you talk about smoothness and style, little Al certainly has it.
He really does. Al Unser Jr. is, well, he's due a win, and I think we'll see it before very long.
You know, his father always had the reputation, and currently still enjoys it, in fact, of being an extremely smooth driver. And I wonder how much of that comes through heredity or just how much of that comes from his dad saying, now the car always has to feel right to you.
Well, it's got to rub off, you know. It's a situation where it's probably in the genes. The fact that Al Sr. was such a good driver, is a good driver, and Jr. is just following in the footsteps.
As we watch Al Unser Jr., Johnny, I want to think a little bit about the attitude, the tactics, perhaps, of the Newman-Haas team. They have the lead at the moment. You can see that the Patrick car, the Emerson Fittipaldi machine, still sits in second. But Mario has dropped back almost 9 seconds behind this little fight. He seems to be taking it a little bit easier. Is that just going to be maybe the tactics of the race, that they want to set that second car back there and let him watch for a while?
Well, it's really hard to say at this point. We have no way of knowing whether there might be something a little bit wrong. He might need some front wing, or he might need something changed on the car just a little bit that the crew can do on a pit stop that won't cost him any time, so he's back there doing just what he can. But by the same token, the luck they've been having, maybe he's holding back to be able to have the car for him at the finish.
There you see Mario as he comes over the start-finish line, running in 3rd place, 10 seconds behind the fight between Fittipaldi and his son Michael. Of course, Michael out in front. And once again, to tell the difference between those two Haviland cars, Mario has that red number 5, while Michael has the black number 6. Let's go to the pits, Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, we posed that question to the team. Was Mario Andretti backing off, or was he actually running as fast as he could? They said, well, he's waiting for the race to stabilize a little bit. No need to push. Remember the concern about transitions between the pavement and the landing zones here and how it could wreak havoc with the CV joints and suspension. They said they make one little change when they come in next on their pit stop. They may change tires just a little bit, tweak the handling, but not make any major changes at all during that first pit stop. Back to you.
All right, Mario Andretti, and with 19 laps complete, we actually, John, should see first pit stops in another 8-9 laps.
Yeah, it's that seems to be. I think it's going to be a two-stopper, and we'll see some stops, 27 laps or so, and it'll tell us, I think, at that point, who might be getting the mileage.
Well, the leaders work their way past the slower car of Randy Lewis and the Toshiba machine, now running clear and alone at the moment as they come onto the Lakeside Straight, and Fittipaldi, with a little better exit from the last corner, is able to close down once again on young Michael Andretti. James Weaver, by the way, has been having his problems on the track and has slowed down just a bit. We'll keep track of him as we watch this fight for the lead. And again, Michael is able to hold off Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi doesn't seem to be showing quite the desperate drive that Michael is showing. If you look at the two cars, Fittipaldi seems to get in and off the corners just a little bit smoother. Michael seems to be turning in a little bit quicker.
Well, I think it's just the fact that Emo's back there has a chance to pick his pace. He sees the leader. He knows where he has to go, and it'll be interesting to see if when it comes time or he decides he can't reel him in and go by.
The tightest section of the course they just passed through, the final two corners, 11 and 12. Then they come across the start-finish line. They're now in the first and second corners as we watch the leaders. Then they accelerate just as fast as they can, back down through the gears onto the brakes, and they head through this, which is turn 3, a change in the pavement. They work their way past the slower car, back out, accelerating just as fast as they can onto the Lakeside Straight. We had a problem with Randy Lewis. He ran out of fuel on the race course. They've managed to tow him back in. They've been working on Fabrizio Barbazza's car in the pits. As we take a rundown through the entire starting field here and take a look at the positions, they've been working on Weaver's car, number 15. He had some damage to the car, no indication on how it took place, but they've been trying to get that car repaired and get it back into the action. The story is one of attrition, or at least that's what one expects. These cars are being banged about on this very rough surface, and the survival of the car is a real question. Now let's go down to the pits. Here's Gary Gerald.
Rick Mears getting service, Paul. They've made full tire change all the way around and have topped him with fuel, and with a squeal of tires, he's away in 16 seconds. Rick really laid down the rubber when he cleaned out of the pits.
Rick Mears, 16 seconds in and out with some Penske service. And he is back into the action once again, as now we get both of the leaders beginning to make their turns down onto the pit road as both Fittipaldi and Michael Andretti come in. There is Michael Andretti.
Ready.
And there is Emerson Fittipaldi. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, both the 1-2 combination have completed their work. Michael Andretti gets it into gear first and hits his father. Mario is stuck behind his father. Mario, we have seen this before. He has to do a complete K-turn and loses the lead. Meanwhile, Mario Andretti completes his work. What a difficult situation for the Newman Haas team, Paul.
Terrible confusion in the pits as Fittipaldi picks up the lead. Al Unser Jr. is now in the pits, but problems down at Newman Haas. Little Al sits most calmly in the car as the Gallus team goes to work on the Valvoline machine. Now they get it rolling once again, and he rolls out.
Yes, it's spotty pit stops. Guys coming in not always at the same time. And that was unfortunate for the Andrettis to have one come in and block the other one, and that hurt them both.
The pits here are fairly narrow, John. Was that a contributing factor to that?
Well, I'm sure it had to be because, of course, they were both in their pits respectively, and it was, it's very hard to turn in as close as you have to get right in your right spot.
You can see the pits there. That's the exit that they have to come down for. And the Newman Haas team, the last two positions down there. So when they wanted to come forward, Michael didn't want to get too far out because he didn't want to get out into the high-speed running lane that the rest of the cars would be exiting on. So now the leader, as a result of those stops, is Emerson Fittipaldi. And here, as we watch Fittipaldi, the report comes that Michael Andretti will come back into the pits. So what was a strong lead? There is Michael back in. John, what could it be? They have some wings ready.
It appears they're looking over the right front. He might have bent a track rod in the front.
Let's go to the pit there and Jack Arute.
Well, what they've done is they have bent a tie rod. What has happened is when he hit his father, Mario, he bent the tie rod in the front. They're going to have to make the exchange on that. He also tore off some of the wing flaps, the front parts of the wing. They're going to make one change. They did it in about 20 seconds, and hopefully they're going to be able to get him back in here in the competition. Back up to you.
Boy, you're right, Jack. 20 seconds in and out. That's some terrific work by the Newman-Haas team. But what a terrible disappointment for Michael Andretti. He had this race totally in his control.
It really is, and it seems like that's the standard for them. They always kind of get out front. They're showing well, and when they make their pit stop or something happens, it's something always a little goofy. You know, he gets hit by another car, just tagged that he really shouldn't have, or he gets in and starts out, and another car comes in and hits him. It's incredible.
The report from the Rayner pits now on Derek Daly is that something went wrong in the engine compartment on that machine, taking Derek Daly out of the action. So the Patrick team is back on top again, shades of last week.
Oh, there we see it. Emerson is so smooth, and he has what is the greatest thing for a race driver to possibly have, and that's confidence.
Let's go down to the pits.
Teo Bobby being serviced. He engages the clutch before the jacks were down. He gets away in just under 16 seconds, Paul. Everything looked routine, but he had those rear wheels lighting up before they came down off the jacks.
Dale Bobby running in third place at the time he came in for that stop. That's the Porsche machine. So many stories on this car as Porsche tries to get it operating.
Boy, getting those wheels spinning like that can be disastrous, too. When it comes down, it could really put some undue strain on those half shafts. And on a rough racetrack like this, that could mean the difference.
I'll tell you what, there are a lot of people around the racetrack pulling for this man and this team. The team manager, Derek Walker, and Peter Parrott, who used to be Rick Mears' chief, working on that car. And Teo Fabi himself. In fact, there's quite a joke. Some years ago when they were putting decals together, here comes Rahal. We'll hold on that for just a moment. Bobby Rahal running in second. Moved up to second as a result of the series of pit stops. In second as he comes into the pits, the Craco team goes to work. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, Bobby Rahal having what seems to be a fairly routine stop right now. He has gone longer than any of the front runners. He lights the tires up as he gets away in very quick time, and the Craco crew is very proud of themselves right now.
That is what it's supposed to be done. That's the way it's supposed to be done. I can assure you that was a good pit stop.
Nice job by the Craco crew at the 29th lap. So Rahal was able to carry that fuel load. There's the guys that just got the job done. They have to be happy with themselves. You know, one of the nice things about IndyCar racing is as we look at Barry Green and the rest of the crew, is everybody knows the stop is going to happen. They get down around the pits. The crowd behind that particular pit focuses on the pit. They watch the crew, the crewmen tense, and then the car comes to a stop. They vault over the wall. They fall on the car. They do their job. Often you don't hear it because of the acceleration of the car, but as soon as the car leaves the pits, the crowd around will just break out in applause for those crew members.
It's like watching the start of a gold medal Olympic race, running race. They're all ready and they're in their positions, like you say. It's very good.
I want to finish the story on Teo Fabi. Somebody put the cows together for him, they'd never heard a first name like Teo, so they made him Ted Fabi, T-E-D. And now everybody's found out about that, so all the crews up and down the pits call him Ted.
Ted Fabi.
And everybody's hoping that Ted has a pretty good day. Let's go down to the pits once again, Jack Arute.
I'm with Barry Green, who calls the shots on Bobby Rahal's team, and Barry, that was just absolutely a flawless pit stop. Your crew performed unbelievably.
Yeah, they did a good job, Jack. They've been doing a great job all year. We've got one more to go yet, though. He's getting obviously exceptional fuel mileage, and the car's working quite well yet. So we'll see what we can do with the next stop and see what we're like at the end of the race.
Now, a great run at Portland. What did you do to the car differently from there to now? Have you made any major changes? Anything you learned out there that you're using in effect here?
No, we came here a little bit off the pace the first day, but we've got it working now, and still a long way to go in the race yet, Jack, so we'll see what we're like at the end.
A lot of hopes for Cosworth, people. Right on this team right now. They're running in the third position as we speak to you. Back to you.
And something, Paul, that I've made note of is the reason Rahal had such a good stop was he didn't have anybody in the pits. Everyone else had already made their stops, which tells us automatically he's getting a little better fuel mileage. He's running a little longer. That could pay off in the end.
Well, while certainly fuel should not be a factor here today, the fact that he can run into a clear pit certainly would be a factor for Bobby Rahal. The action continues. Emerson Fittipaldi is the leader. Back at the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix, Fittipaldi, the 20 car, is still the leader of the race here. Now that the first set of pit stops are complete, there are 2 scheduled. Here is the rundown of the top 5. Fittipaldi, Mario Andretti, then Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., then Michael Andretti, who of course was our early leader. Taking a look, 6 through 10, Mears, Bobby Jewett. Raul Boisel is really moving his way up. Ari Leindyke was up there but has dropped back. 32 laps are now complete. So Emerson Fittipaldi out in front of this field, enjoying now a life in the Indy cars, enjoying his time running with these fine drivers. Jack Arute has a closer look.
When Emerson Fittipaldi scored his 3rd win of the season last weekend at Portland International Raceway, many began to wonder if the only way to catch the Brazilian was if he was on foot and they were behind the wheel. His domination this year of the CART Series is reminiscent of the way he scorched the Formula One circuit back in the 70s. Young, brash, and bold, Emerson Fittipaldi captured 2 world driving titles and became a leader on the globe-trotting International Motor Racing Tour. Then, quite abruptly, he walked away.
Of the ambience, the politics, the safety in racing that time. I had no motivation to drive faster car anymore. Since 1979 and 80, I retired. It was just too much for me.
No longer at the wheel, Emo tackled the business world, amassing a wide array of holdings from orange groves, fashion shops, and auto accessories. Fittipaldi enjoyed his success, but then the siren song of racing called once more.
My really return to race was in Miami, to drive the Spirit of Miami. And I told my wife, I told Teresa, why not do like 4 or 5 major IMSA races in America and enjoy drive? I love to drive fast racing cars. And would not have all the pressure, I would not just be easy for me. And when I went to Miami and I drove the March on the street circuit, I enjoyed driving. It was 3 years of not driving.
From IMSA, it was on to Indy cars. And this year, Fittipaldi saw one driver, Al Unser Jr., between him and Indy immortality. After surviving this late race crash, Emerson Fittipaldi piloted his Patrick Racing entry across the line to capture his first Indianapolis 500. Emotion abounded. The accomplishment was not lost on the once world champion.
To win Indianapolis is magic. I mean, it's much more important than I realized on the reaction of the people in racing and the people outside of racing. And there's no doubt about it, was the biggest achievement as any event I won in my life.
$1 million payday was only part of the accomplishment. It put Fittipaldi solidly in the hunt for the PPG IndyCar World Series Championship. Between Indy and Portland, Fittipaldi orchestrated CART's debut in the streets of Detroit by winning their first event there.
Well, I would say that at the present time, the IndyCar racing CART, in my opinion, is the best news, the best challenge. We're driving 4 different tracks. It's growing very quickly worldwide. Just need a little more international flavor, but it's much more competitive than Formula One, no doubt about it. I would not change CART for Formula One, no way.
Emerson Fittipaldi, the 20 car, out in front. You know, in that ongoing raging battle between whether or not Formula One is superior, the IndyCar is superior, not to fuel the argument too much, John, but just to elaborate on Fittipaldi's comments. The Indy cars run on natural terrain road courses, on street circuits, on temporary circuits, on an airport circuit, on super speedways, and on flat miles. Whereas the Formula One cars, for the most part, are on either the street circuit or on the natural terrain road course. I think Fittipaldi readily points it out. That certainly speaks to the versatility of the drivers we're seeing today.
Oh, Martin, that's a definite statement, Paul. The versatility of the IndyCar drivers. There are a lot of guys out here that run on dirt. You know, they run the half-mile dirts or the quarter-mile dirts and midgets, sprint cars, and you know, we've all had a chance to do this. So I think versatility is, you know, the byword of the IndyCar driver, able to jump in anything. We can get stock cars, we can get Indy cars, we can go run midget sprint cars or anything. When Formula One is a little more, you know, it's down to a fine line of having a road racer that can go do the job in one kind of racing.
We take a look back now at the third place fight. Al Unser Jr., car number 2, is currently running right there. But look right behind him. That is Bobby Rahal, who is beginning to close down in the Craco machine. Al Unser, the senior Unser, he is now running in 11th place. He's moved up 5 spots from his 16th starting position. And also Raul Boisel in the 30 car started 12th, and he has managed to walk his way up into 9th place. Now, a man who started in 14th but is out of the race, but from whom we expect to see a great deal of skill and a lot of competition, is James Weaver. He's now down in the pits with Gary Jarrell.
Well, this is one of the new faces to IndyCar racing, and he's getting stronger and stronger for Dyson Racing. And James Weaver, we know that the engine seized up and unfortunately put you out, but I think people are interested in your reaction. How much progress do you feel this team is making, trying to get a foothold now in this very competitive sport?
Well, I think the team's doing a great job. I've driven for Rob Dyson for 2 years now, so I'm delighted to be back with him again. And we're all learning, so it's nice to learn together.
Yesterday in the final practice session with full tanks, you were running among the top 10.
Yeah, the car was going very well on full tanks, and we're looking forward to a good race today. We hope we might be able to finish in the top 10, but unfortunately the motor seized.
All right, let's swing right over here and get Rob Dyson, just get his reaction to this whole business. Rob, you're a newcomer to IndyCar racing. You've been in all types of other racing. It is a tough job to get in here and be competitive, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting. You know, you got a lot of guys that have been in it for a long time, of course, Gary, and they set very high standards, and it takes a lot of effort, and we're just starting.
Nice to see new faces making an inroad, however. Keep up the good work.
We're trying, thanks.
All right, Rob Dyson, Paul.
Continuing to watch that battle for third place. There's Little Al, and as you watch, you saw Rahal has from moment to moment closed in to really worry Little Al.
Yes, he's sitting back there just waiting for his opportunity to close up, and that's not easy to do because you'll go through one corner and the bumps will knock you loose and handle you one way, and the other guy didn't quite have it that way, and he gets a little edge on you. So it's a yo-yo trip.
Out in front of this field, still Emerson Fittipaldi. Mario Andretti still sits in second. He is 27 seconds back behind the leader. We watch the battle for third place. Downtown Cleveland, you get an idea of how hazy it is. It's terribly humid here today, and it is hot out there. And when it's humid like that, the drivers, they perspire, but not much, and it stays hot in the cockpit.
Oh, it really does. It's extremely uncomfortable in the cars like that.
Comfortable positioning, though, for Emerson Fittipaldi, the number 20 Marlboro car, as he leads this field. Mario Andretti runs in second place after that confrontation in the pits between Mario and his son, Michael. You can see some of the rubber that's come off of the tires, and a little bit of the pebbles from the asphalt. Reminds us of last week at Portland. I wonder if they're going to have problems with that corner, John.
Yes, you can see the patches as they come through, you mentioned, and that's kind of normal. They slough off. These cars get a lot of lateral G, and those big wide tires have a tendency to scrub that asphalt loose, and they get a little bit out of the groove. So, but it's not enough that it will bother you unless you get way out into it, and then you get all pointed, you've got a problem.
There's the number 8 car, the Quaker State machine, the Porsche Teo Fabi. He runs in 6th place. This is the track. Now, if it looks more like an airport, that's because it is.
It is, and you can see the dark marks. You can follow the traces of the cars and actually see the course itself and where the cars go with watching the grooves.
The front of the field, the 20 car. Emerson Fittipaldi. Will it be 3 in a row? Will he pull out the hat trick? Well, we'll see today. 42 laps are complete at the Burke Lakefront Airport. And stopped dead on the course after a quick spin. Now with the help of the corner marshals is Al Unser Jr. He was running in 3rd. You look at the onboard camera as the rest of the cars rush past on that grooved concrete runway. He is trying to get a tow and trying to get going. He killed the engine when he took a quick spin.
Yes, and that's unfortunate. He really wants them to get, you know, he's getting give me a push, you guys. Come on, let's get going here. I want to get this thing fired back in the chase. And that was very unfortunate because he was running extremely well. Now Rahal has that spot he was in quest of.
They try to get the engine to kick over, and they do, thanks to those corner workers. And I'll tell you, John, you saw those guys at the back of the car. What you don't see are cars bearing down on them at 160, 170, 180 miles an hour. They've got to feel totally naked out there, and that they stay with it. I'll tell you what, they are terrific.
Yes, they're to be commended, but boy, I like to say, those cars coming down, it can be extremely tough on you.
So Al Unser Jr. had his problems as we take a look. Here's the replay, Johnny Rutherford. See Little Al coming off of the corner.
There he goes. That's that rough part of the course, Paul. We've been talking about it all day. You come through there, and it's a little bit off camber. You get the power down extremely hard. Bang, around you go.
As a result of that, Little Al has dropped back through the field and runs in 9th, and there you saw it as Ray Hall gets past during that spin. Let's go to Jack Arute in the pits.
Well, the team is awaiting the presence of their driver, Al Unser Jr., to go down onto pit road. They check things out through the inboard camera here to see just exactly what might have happened. You see, hidden beneath their fuel tank here is a monitor that shows them or allows each and every one of them to ride on board with their driver. They were all huddled around here as they tried to coax verbally Al Unser Jr. getting refired. When he finally did, they just turned back to their action here, looking out towards the Burke Lakefront area, and just turned their backs on the camera. But they are very down and out right now.
Of course, the velocities are such at that point on the course. He's not running so fast that he would really have flat spotted the tires and forced him to come in.
Right. Probably he was in the power and it started coming loose and the car went around before he could. He had no point to get on the brakes. He was just at that time trying to save it, and it came around. The wheels were still rolling, so they wouldn't flat spot as easily.
So Al Unser Jr. dropped back into 9th place. At the front of the field, it is still Fittipaldi, followed by Mario. Then Michael now up to 3rd place. Ray Hall runs in 4th, and Teo Fabi runs in 5th. Let's take a look at the summary of action thus far. We have it with 40 laps complete. We're running on the 45th lap. Fittipaldi now the leader. And we are still running on a record pace of 130 miles an hour. The race record is 128 miles an hour. That also held by Emerson Fittipaldi. No full course cautions, a couple of waiting yellows in individual places. 21 are remaining of those that started this race. And 8 cars continue to run with Fittipaldi on the lead lap. Out of the race, Scott Atchison, John Jones, Barbatza being reported out, as is James Weaver. Derek Daly had his problems, and Guido Dacco with engine problems. We'll take a look down through the entire field while we have the opportunity to, with 46 laps now being counted for Emerson Fittipaldi in the number 20 car. And he runs dominant in this race. So is the hat trick on the way for Fittipaldi? The question that remains unanswered, we've seen the cars out of the race, is that of attrition. At the front of the field, they've been pretty solid. Al Unser Jr. had his problem and a quick spin, but the car continued on, so no damage there. Damage to Michael Andretti's car when he ran into the back of his father's trying to get out of the pits, but they got that repaired. As far as the kind of things we suggested, due to the roughness of the circuit, we haven't seen that yet.
No, and it'll start showing up pretty soon, I think. We'll see some cars starting to limp around with gearbox problems or whatever the problem might be, but I think it's been about time we'll start seeing some of those things.
You know, this particular race, as we take a look at the leader coming around, and he will be putting the 6th place car of Rick Mears a lap down if in fact he can get by. You know, this race is one of those put together by the Penske organization. That group has been a very busy group the past couple of weeks. They ran with NASCAR a week ago at Michigan International, and then all of the staff that put that race on rushed over here to Cleveland to get this temporary race put together. And of course, they look ahead to the Michigan 500 and the IROC race coming up in August as well. So that's a real busy group of folks. They do a nice job.
Yeah, they do. They really do. They attend to every detail, and it shows in their performance.
So Fittipaldi still in front, averaging 130.17 miles an hour and still running on a record pace as he moves past Rick Mears.
There we see him put a lap on Rick Mears, and he now has some clear racetrack so he can just stretch it on out.
Report, too, that the 59 car of Steve Saleen took a quick little half spin on the course. Saleen was able to save it and was able to get going. So now we anticipate some pit stops. They'll be coming in for what should, in fact, be the final stop of this 80-lap run, with 47 laps now complete, and Emerson Fittipaldi still out in front. Emerson Fittipaldi rolls down to the pits. We go to Jack Arute.
Emerson Fittipaldi's crew goes to work. The Marlboro Patrick Racing Team exchanging all 4 tires all the way around. The report from Emerson, not really concerned about the vibrations and the roughness of the racetrack. Why? Well, he had about a 30-second lead over his rival Mario Andretti. In fact, he is off and away, and Andretti is yet to come onto pit road.
Beautiful pit stop, 15.2 seconds as Fittipaldi comes streaming off of the pit road. and keeps his position as he heads around the third corner and out toward the lake. Rick Mears right there. Rick Mears pulled way wide on that corner.
Really
and I wonder what was going on with Rick.
Giving a little room, I guess, to whomever that was coming up beside him.
Rick Mears is back up to speed already as Emerson Fittipaldi is once again running full tilt. Here's Michael in. Let's go to Gary.
And again, Paul, 4 tires all the way around. Michael had that problem on the earlier stop. Oh, he's off the jacks already. They're waiting only for fuel now. A remarkable tire change. Now he's off in 14.45 seconds on our clock. Good stop. We anticipate now that Mario will be in on the next lap. They were going to take no chances on a repercussion of what happened on that first stop.
I'll tell you what, that was one terrific tire change. All 4 going there. And I saw them down off the jacks before the 12th second came up.
Oh, it was a good one.
So Michael Andretti with a nice stop. The Newman Haas team and his Haviland car back out and running. Michael was running in third at the time of the stop. We wait now for his father. Also, Al Unser Jr. has pulled into the pits and makes his stop. Here's Jack.
Well, Al Unser Jr., after doing a 360, stalling the car, comes onto pit road, getting the work from his crew. They are filling the car full of fuel. They've just completed that. They had finished the tire change well before the fuel. He is off and away, but not really getting back up to speed as quick as one would hope.
Wonder if he's not lost a gear or a clutch because he is pulling away slowly, John.
It really is. He must have a problem or something happened to him there. Now he's back up to speed, it appears, and he's able to get moving and get the car going again.
What do you think that would be? Would that be the clutch?
Well, it could have been that or a gear. Maybe he's got a gear problem, you know, a gearbox problem.
You see that bright yellow light just over his right hand? That's flickered on and off a couple times. I think that's an engine pressure light.
Well, whenever you get the RPM low, Paul, it's, you know, the thing drops, the engine RPM drops, and the light will come on because it's very sensitive to the oil pressure fluctuation. And so it's nothing more than that unless it comes on and stays on. Then you've got a problem.
All right, so Al Unser Jr. makes his final stop, and here comes Mario Andretti, the bright number 5. And let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, he comes in. He's got a clear lane. As he glides right up effortlessly, he hits the marks. We start the watch. We'll see how quickly this crew can change. They've got fresh rubber. Now they've got fuel going in. Everything appears to be routine. Mario on lap 55, well inside the window. This is the man that won here at Cleveland last year. This is not a particularly fast stop. They're past 16 seconds. Now off the jacks. It's 17.6 seconds for Mario Andretti. He lost a little time to Fittipaldi's stop, Paul.
So Mario comes out onto the pit lane and comes out in front of Bobby Rahal. Rahal was the third-place car, and he is in a fight right now. A great fight developing here between Mario and Bobby Rahal as the two accelerate on the lakeside straight.
That was incredible. You know what? I saw a little doubt in the fuel man there on Mario's stop. Like, give me some more fuel, or is the thing running? And then suddenly someone says, come off. They pulled away, so it looked like there was a little doubt. We might have one of the guys check on that in the pits.
Al Unser Jr. is in there as well. Of course, he is several laps off of the leader pace. But Mario and Bobby Rahal are actually battling for position. And, of course, Little Al is right in between those cars, as you saw just a second ago. Fight continues here as they come toward the line. Rahal, of course, gets scheduled to pits. There's Rahal, the 18 car, that yellow and blue Graco machine. Just behind him is Little Al, and then Andretti just behind that.
You see that guy standing there waving that flag, the blue flag with the yellow stripe? That's the move-over flag. That's to let a slower car know that he's got some faster cars overtaking.
All right, let's go to Jack Arute in the pits.
Well, Paul, Little Al could have a problem, a slipping clutch that could create a problem for Mario Andretti, who's trying to close in on Bobby Rahal. You said that lap car of Al Unser Jr. is between he and Bobby Rahal as they race for position. As you guys know, a slipping clutch on a road course can create some problems.
Well, it certainly is going to create a problem when you want to get the rear wheels to hook up and run. And you see that continued flashing light there. I mentioned that because when he came out of the pits, we saw it flash, which you indicated could mean low revs in the engine. Now, the clutch itself, John, is actually only used normally in these kind of cars when they are engaging first gear. After that, they just flick through the gearbox without the clutch.
Well, you can actually you don't use the clutch when you're running on the course. the gearboxes are that precise. The only time you really have to use it is to engage first gear to leave the pits. And that's the critical point. We saw little Al pulling out slow. Obviously, he was having trouble getting the thing in gear, so he might have opted for a higher gear. It would get in a little easier and get rolling, but still slows him way down getting out.
And look at Andretti and little Al as they dice it up. Andretti moves to the inside, past little Al, and continues his pursuit of the second-place car of Bobby Rahal. Let's go to the pits once again.
Well, Paul, we did check with Mario Andretti's crew. They said it was just a matter of trying to lift that hose up there at the end, make sure they got every bit of available fuel in. They said there was not a glitch or a problem getting the fuel on board. They just wanted to ensure the fact they could get every drop they possibly could.
We watch Mario Andretti, and Michael Andretti, his son, is back into the pits. Michael was running in fifth. The crew now beginning to take off the rear cowling on the car. They fuel the car. It is up on the jacks. They step away from it, and then they decide that they may want to go back to work on it. Unscheduled, and the real question is, what is the problem here?
Oh, that's really something. This team is as we say, they are snake pit. They just can't seem to get one full race in without one of them or both of them having some sort of a problem, and that's a shame because Michael's running so strong in the beginning.
Michael has not won in the IndyCar since Miami in 1987. He is back in the pits again after a fairly successful run. Emerson Fittipaldi is out in front of this field, followed by Bobby Rahal. The Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland, but for the day it is at least a racetrack. Floating over it, the Goodyear Blimp Enterprise, giving us these magnificent pictures. There she is in a very hazy sky on a very humid and hot day in Cleveland. And we look down on the course now. Michael Andretti, they continue to work on that car. Gary Gerald is there.
Well, Paul, this is the man, of course, who started from the pole today, and you talk about extreme frustration. I don't know if anybody could experience more frustration than what Michael is going through and has been going through in the last few moments. They say it's a problem that was very similar to the one that his dad had at Indianapolis in the month of May. When you back off the throttle, for some reason, the engine would just die. They've changed the electronics, the black box. They're ready now, trying to fire him up. The engine roars into life. Michael quickly pulling on the gloves, engages the gears. He's going back out to try it again.
Michael Andretti, and it just kind of putters away. It's certainly not hooking up with the kind of fervor you'd like an engine developing over 750
really
horsepower to develop. 2 minutes and 37 seconds Michael Andretti spends in the pits, makes the repair, and now rolls back into the action. But of course he's fallen well through the field and is running in 11th place. And as Michael heads out, Bobby Rahal comes onto the pit road. Remember that Rahal ran long before his stop the first time. He's in again. Here is Jackaroo.
Page, they are taking on fuel only. Their average miles per gallon during this race has been computed out to 2.1. He has a very quick stop. Again, lights up the tires. They take on enough fuel to go the distance. So that's it for the Craco team this afternoon on pit road.
Boy, and that time you get an idea of how they cheer the crew around there. There they are, Barry Green and the team again. They really have got that stop down.
When they have a good one, you know it, and they're very proud of themselves for that one, rightfully so.
They can be happy with that situation as Bobby Rahal comes back up to speed along the lake, and a lot of boats have pulled into the harbor here at Cleveland and are sitting just offshore from the Burke Lakefront Airport, watching the rest of this race. You can see the lake out there in the haze, and down from the Blimp Enterprise, all of the spectators that are enjoying it from the deck of their boats, and one or two what I'd classify as a bona fide yacht out there, John.
I'd say so. They're really some nice ones.
Michael Andretti returns to the pits once again, his ongoing woes. But the good news is that his father, Mario, with Rahal's pit stop, was able to pick up second place. But with Michael, they continue the struggle.
Yeah, that's... as I said before, that's a shame. This crew works very, very hard, and he's always, when we get here, he's on the pole. He runs very, very fast, very strong, and then they run into the problems. So they've got to get things ironed out.
The disappointment in young Michael's eyes as his car continues to sit in the pits and the crew continues to work. Emerson Fittipaldi continues to lead in the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. Now, Emerson Fittipaldi could very easily be going for his 5th win in a row. He's won 3 of the last 4, was comfortably, if in fact he wins today, he's won 3 of the last 4 at this moment. He's going for 3 in a row right now. He was comfortably ahead, if you remember, back in Milwaukee when he was pinched off in the corner. No contact, but Emo then looped his car in the second turn, and he ended up not winning that particular run. And he's kept both hands on the wheel then. It would have been likely that he would be on his way to win number 5 at this moment. But whatever it is, it's working well as he works around the Miller High Life car. That is Al Unser, and that is the mount normally occupied by Danny Sullivan. Danny was so upset about the fact that he's not able to drive because of his broken arm, but taking the smart course and letting it mend, he should be back at the next event. They only indicated a need to take out 2 different races. And Danny has decided just to stay away from the track, stay at his home in Aspen, recuperate, relax, get his strength back, but I know this has got to be eaten at his guts.
Can I do this? Hi, Danny.
Okay, Danny Sullivan, everybody here is looking for you back. Well, Rick Mears is running in 5th place right now and running alone at the moment, not being challenged by anyone on the race circuit. He was in a battle earlier as he closes up now behind Teo Fabi and begins a challenge of his own. But Rick Mears, Penske Racing. Let's take a look at Gary Gerald.
The season began in Phoenix with the Penske team looking unstoppable with a Chevrolet PC-18 combination. Rick Mears flashing to a decisive win.
I don't think you ever think you have a steamroller effect. We had a great season last year with both Danny and Rick. Phoenix is a good racetrack for us. We did a lot of testing there. Our car aerodynamically, obviously, was superior. Both Danny and Rick were quick. Fittipaldi was quick and then had the accident. So I think that proved that the cars were, really ones to beat.
But the projected Penske dynasty was slowed at Long Beach, with both teams experiencing lengthy pit stops. Rick was content with 5th. Sullivan had to settle for 8th. Things got no better at Indianapolis, as during qualifying week, Sullivan broke his right forearm in a devastating crash.
You don't ever want your drivers to get hurt. And, it was a situation where the bodywork came off. Certainly it wasn't anything that Danny did. He just had to go for a ride once the bodywork came off. So it really put him back. And, when you have a team and the crew's used to working with one driver and then they have to substitute drivers, in alternate weeks, it makes it much tougher. But he'll be back.
Race day at Indianapolis, 2 Penske cars were on the front row. Sullivan was back, but by the midpoint, all 3 were out of the competition, and it was the other Chevy PC-18 combination in victory lane.
If you look at the races that they've won, those are races that we couldn't have won. We ran out of gas, the blue engines and had clutches go out at Indianapolis. So when you really look at it, to date, we've had Penske cars up there, which is key for us. It shows we have the best chassis. And you give it to a guy like Fittipaldi, and you give it to a team like Patrick, they're going to be tough. But, that's the ball game. And when we get beat, we don't feel so good inside. But I think it's kind of ironic when people said, well, you had a bad race at Indy, what happened? The amazing thing is that those mechanics were taking Al's car apart in the garage after it went out so they could get it ready the next day to have it painted so Rick could drive that car and win the race at Milwaukee.
At Detroit, Sullivan couldn't finish because of pain. Jeff Brabham substituted for him at Portland last week, and Al Unser fills in today here at Cleveland. Despite another disappointment, Roger Penske is undaunted.
You might get knocked down one day, but the best is the ones that get back up and be in the middle of the game, a week or so later. I think that's what we've been able to do over the years.
Roger Penske, the motto is effort equals results. Well, the results for Rick Mears you saw just before we went away to that feature as he got past Teo Fabi and picked up 4th place. There is Emerson Fittipaldi. He is still out in front as we take a look at the summary of this event to this point. Fittipaldi now becoming the dominant factor and, of course, picks up a point because he has led more than the halfway point. Led, in fact, most of the laps in this race, so now with 87 points in that PPG Series fight for the PPG IndyCar World Champion. Averaging at 129 miles an hour, still running a record by about 0.6 of a second. No full course cautions just yet. 2 leaders. Michael Andretti and Emerson Fittipaldi, and just the 1 change, and whittled down the front of the field. Just 3 cars currently running on the lead lap.
Yes, Emerson has shown the strength, and like I say, he's got the greatest thing in the world going for him, and that's confidence. He knows when he gets out there, his car is going to perform for him. He just does his job.
We take a look, too, at the cars out of the race as a result of action here, and attrition we expected to be the problem. Mario Andretti running in 3rd. His son Michael having his problems, has been in and out of the pits a number of times, and now they are reporting that they are going to pull the car out of competition. So now Mario Andretti running in second, 30 seconds behind the leader, is the key factor for the Newman-Haas operation. His job to chase down this number 20 car of Emerson Fittipaldi, who just worked his way around the machinist car, that number 11 machine of Kevin Cogan.
Emerson just passes him as he comes to him. He's on a roll.
So Fittipaldi works his way around this course with 68 laps complete, 80 laps the scheduled distance. It's not quite 200 miles. The actual measured distance of the race is 198.4 miles. And fuel not being a factor, but the circuit itself is really critical. You can see, look at the wings flex as Fittipaldi bounces over some of the points here on the course. I was looking at some of the data that came out of the Penske computers. You know, during the practice time, they have onboard computers on many of these cars. Penske, of course, has one. Patrick has one. And when they pull the data out, they can tell a lot about what's happening to the cars. And when they took it out yesterday, the indication was at one point where the car would bounce over some of these rough points and the rear wheels would come off the ground, that the engine would suddenly go to 12,800 RPM. Whoa!
That is hard on half shafts, because when they go up, they've got to come back down, and that is tough.
Hard on half shafts, hard on valve springs, hard on pistons, hard all around. Let's go down to the pits, Gary Gerald.
Well, the man who sits dejectedly on the wall with a cold dripping towel is Michael Andretti, and I know the words are hard at this point. Any indication of all of what type of problem? I know you were just troubleshooting on these stops.
Well, the first problem, we had in the pits, and I bent the steering arm, and so I was sort of really, could barely keep the pace. And then after that, something went wrong in the electrics. I don't know what it was.
Michael, how do you cope with situations like this where you prove week after week that you're in position to get a win, but it's just not happening?
I don't know. Just look forward to the next one, I guess. That's all we could do.
See you at the Meadowlands.
Thanks.
Michael Andretti, obviously extremely dejected, Paul. What a tough day.
Well, the race begins to wear and tear at some of these cars. John Paul Jr. in the 16 car. He started 18. Was moving up and running well, and then he had a brush with the wall. Fortunately, though, he didn't damage the car that badly and has managed to continue on. And Bernard Jourdain is now being reported out of the race, and this report, Johnny Rutherford, is a gearbox. And that's the most fragile portion of the powertrain when it comes to this kind of a course.
It really is. Whenever you start testing the strength of the system, the weakest link in the chain usually gives up, and it appears that the gearbox may be just that. And it's surprising, because usually half shafts become the first thing to give you a problem when it's very rough like this, but those gears are pretty fragile sometimes. It's happened.
Now as we move into the closing laps of the race, with lap 71 just completed by the leader, Emerson Fittipaldi, still running at record pace but slowing off just a bit. This is a point in the race in which Fittipaldi, with 30 seconds ahead of second place, can short shift a little, be very, very careful and gentle with the car.
Yes, and that's, we say that a lot, and I'm not sure whether we've ever explained short shift. It's nothing more than when you run the car to full RPM, say at 11,000 RPM to shift the gears, you're using fuel because RPMs eat up fuel. When we say short shift, that means that you're going to maybe 9 or maybe 10,000 RPM and shifting the gears so that you're not going at full RPM to use up fuel. You're, in effect, saving the fuel.
So Fittipaldi still out in front of the field. Let's go to the Patrick pits, Fittipaldi's pits. Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, 7 days ago we were talking to this man, Pat Patrick, on and off throughout the day. His big concern was fuel. Pat, today fuel doesn't seem to be a big concern. What are your concerns? You've got a 29-second lead.
Well, our concerns, Jack, are we finish the race. It's a long, rough race, and the track's very rough, as you know. In fact, he's asking me right now if we have enough fuel. We just told him we did have.
Well, this is the man, gentlemen, that can tell you about the fuel. Has he said much about the roughness of the track? Has it wreaked havoc anywhere in the car?
He hasn't said much about anything. He's been driving very hard, and the car feels good to him. He feels very comfortable.
These fellows, gentlemen, continue to find new ways to win. It's so incredible. At Indy, we saw it documented so well with Al Unser Jr. Then at Detroit, where he came back after crashing twice. At Portland, concerns about fuel. Today seems like such a boring day down here in the Marlboro pits because they're just taking care of business in a normal fashion.
You know what I find absolutely amazing, too, is that Emerson Fittipaldi, the leader, will do a play-by-play around the track for you on their two-way radio, that he can be down gearing, going through corners, standing on the brakes, accelerating, pitching the car left and right, and still telling his pits what's going on.
Well, that's the kind of driver he is.
In second place is Mario Andretti, the Haviland car with the bright number 5. He just came across the start-finish line. Now, either Emo is slowing down just a little bit, or Andretti is speeding up, but 3 seconds have come off the interval. What it means physically is that when you saw Mario Andretti go across the start-finish line, at that particular moment, Fittipaldi was almost a full half lap out in front of Mario Andretti. Bobby Rahal is third, Rick Mears is fourth, fifth is Teo Fabi, Scott Pruitt sixth, Al Unser Jr. seventh, eighth is Boissel, ninth Lyondike, and 10th Al Unser. We're back at the Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland, where Emerson Fittipaldi is now just 6 laps away from a checkered flag and a hat trick, 3 in a row, but can he do it? We saw an interview moments ago with Pat Patrick, who is always a little quiet when he is in the public light. He's very careful with what he says, but he asked Jack Arute the question of whether or not he thought that they could make it. Actually, Pat Patrick suggested that they were very concerned about how rough this course is. There is Teo Fabi coming down along the inside of Emerson Fittipaldi. Now, it's not, in fact, a battle for position. They're trying to get around and get back on the leader lap, but that may be an indication of Fittipaldi's attitude at this moment, of just taking it easy.
Oh, I would think so. You know, the Emo has such a nice, comfortable lead to half a lap that he can just sit there and he'll let anybody go by up to a point, I'm sure. But it's tough. You know, you get to running out there and you want to conserve the car and make sure. I'm sure that Patrick Pitt has said, look, take care of that thing. We know it's rough, so you've got 5 laps to go now. Take it easy.
You also see Rick Mears there, the number 4 Pennzoil car. He is running in 5th place. He is actually chasing Teo Fabi, who is sitting just ahead of Emerson Fittipaldi. There you see Fabi going away as well. So that's actually a fight for position. It's a fight for 4th place.
Teo made an impressive move. He just kind of pulled up alongside of Rick Mears and drove by, and now he's pulled away to a comfortable lead on him. And he's running, looks like pretty fast on the course because he's also gone away from Emerson.
Yeah, it also didn't look like Emerson expected it because he was running down his regular line, suddenly saw Teo there, and then moved to the inside. Rick Mears drives an inside position as well, and he comes around Emerson Fittipaldi. Now, again, not for position. Rick Mears is trying to chase Teo Fabi.
It was interesting. You could see Emo just kind of look over and watch Rick go by, you know. He said, okay, you can have it. I don't care. This, we're nearly through anyway, so you guys go at it. I'll let you go on and chase Teo for the spot.
4 laps to go for Emerson Fittipaldi as he continues now a full lap lead, or excuse me, a half lap lead over Mario Andretti. I wondered how Mario might have dropped back that fast. About a half a lap behind is Mario Andretti, and Mario is catching up. He is closing in on Fittipaldi, but Tony Rutherford certainly believes that that is a consequence of the fact that Fittipaldi is playing it very cagey at this point, as Mario drives around Al Unser, replacing Danny Sullivan in that number 1 Miller car.
You can see that Emo is just not attacking the turns. He is taking a little easier. So, you know, I would say at this point he doesn't have a problem. He's just taking it easy so he can go to the finish.
No one else in contest on the field. Rick Mears and Teo Fabi, the closest battle, and for this moment, they are not in contact with one another. Now, if should the checkered flag fall at this moment, and it in fact is only 3 laps away, Fittipaldi will take a 27-point lead in PPG points if, of course, he wins. And Rick Mears continues to run in 5th position. So the advantage on the road course is definitely going to Fittipaldi. And we have 2 more road course runs scheduled. But by the same token, Rick Mears and the Penske team have already met their goal in terms of points for the road courses. They feel very good about Rick Mears' position when they come back to the ovals. So as long as Mears is staying in contact, they seem to be satisfied.
Well, that shows you how calculating the Penske team is to have figured out what they need to be, where they need to be, and what they need to do in order to maintain the position. And they feel very comfortable at this point because we are coming up on what is considered Rick Mears' forte, the ovals at Michigan and at Pocono.
Oh, Emerson Fittipaldi dominates this particular run, but if he wants to break his own record, he is going to have to get back in that throttle. The record here, held by Fittipaldi for the race, is 128.421 miles an hour. He set that back in 1987. He is now running 128.46 miles an hour. So he is running record pace, but only by a decimal point or two, and he has, in fact, been slowing down, though on that last lap, he picked up to 132.8 miles an hour. So perhaps he will continue to maintain his record. Pat Patrick, the owner of the team, with 78 laps complete for Emerson Fittipaldi, 80 the scheduled distance.
You know, Paul, if Emerson wins this race, he'll be the first driver in the last to win 3 straight since 1987. I think Ray Hall was the last one to do that. So Emerson is still setting records.
Mario Andretti now just 20 seconds back from Emerson Fittipaldi, 78 laps complete. Tony Cicali, the rest of the crew in that particular pit, not Tony Cicali, the rest of the crew watching on. Tony Cicali's over with Porsche now as their aerodynamicist, but watching as Emerson Fittipaldi is really running a nice pace, but not a torrid pace, and wondering if their driver is capable of closing down.
At this point, Paul, I think I'd rather win the race than set a track record, because track records and things like that are something that just happened. Still winning the race.
Fittipaldi, the 20 car, the Marlboro machine, and takes the white flag from Nick Finaro. One more lap to go, just under 2.5 miles on the Burke Lakefront Airport. 20 seconds behind is Mario Andretti. The question, of course, continues to be whether or not that car has been prepared for the entire distance. Can it make yet one more lap? It is surely taking a terrible beating running on this particular circuit because it has been rough all day. The tires have been gnawing the ground that is grooved for airplanes to land on, an airport runway grooved for training. There is Andretti as he tries to close down, now 19 seconds behind Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi moving now alongside the Lakeside Straight out to the east end here at the track, making a final set of 4 turns in the rectangle that is the east end portion of the course. Right behind him is Scott Pruitt. Pruitt is currently running in 6th place, a lap off of the pace, and it looks like Pruitt will follow Fittipaldi toward the checkered flag. But Don Henderson, the rest of the people down in the Andretti pit are just praying that Mario can hold on. Maybe some piece of good fortune will happen here right at the last.
There you can see Emerson looking from right to left, checking his mirrors.
The last 2 sets of turns, Emerson Fittipaldi out onto the pit straight, the twin checkered flags, and Emerson Fittipaldi. 3 in a row for Fittipaldi. He continues his lead in the PPG points, scoring the win for the Patrick Racing team. So Fittipaldi has won, and behind